Welcome to True Crime with Strategic Eyes.
Strategic back again. What's going on, guys? I know I started a little early, man. The live was actually scheduled for 11 o'clock, but I'm like, man, I got to start this thing early so I can have more time to do the things I got to do because I got to work the night shift tonight. Unfortunately, I thought I was going to get a little extra sleep, but my son was kind of like having problems getting up. So even though mommy was home today, I got up to help her get him up and ended up taking him to school. So I'm kind of running on fumes, ladies and gentlemen, but I've got my Celsius, man. So I'm going to be ready for the job. I'm going to be up to the task, guys. Let me take a sip of this Celsius. Now, Celsius is not a sponsor of this show, but if you ever want me to be a sponsor, reach out to me because I drink like 5 of these a day. And I need to stop, otherwise I will be in an early grave. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you guys for joining me. We got a great show for you today. A few things. We thought we had the DNA report, the March 10th DNA report, but we did. A great viewer thought that they had those documents without any watermarks, sent it to us. I start going over it, scratching it up, reviewing them. Like, I reviewed this already. Like, this is the old one. This is the April 10th one, man. So it's all good. We were able to then go to the docket, and we basically screenshotted the docket's his video that he did. He kind of like scrolls through it. We screenshot it, so we have the document. The only thing is it has the docket's watermarks on it, so big shout out to the docket for getting this document. We tried to use Plunder, but she kind of did this esoteric kind of thing where she made the word see-through and plastered it on top of Maddy photos. It looks really cool. It is what it is. It was really nice what she did, but it's not going to work for the purposes of what we want to do. So we got it from the docket. We screenshot it from the docket. I think it's pretty much the same thing anyway. If we had a clean copy, it is what it is. So, like, once again, big shout out to the docket. Aki will go ahead and put the links inside of our chat. So, we do what we do. We do what we do. We work with what we have with. At the end of the day, we are not the ones doing these FOIA requests, spending the thousands of dollars, the hundreds of dollars that these creators are spending to get that stuff. So we got to work with what we got to work with. It is what it is, right? But it's going to be a great show, a very informative show. Great show, very informative show. I'm going to break this down for you guys. And since I marked up the DNA report that we already did, I think it's only fair that we just do both now. So our first DNA show, which was a very big hit, it had almost 50,000 views. It went viral on the standards of our show, went viral on TikTok. A lot of TikTok creators was using that to help explain to their audience. We appreciate them. Then they sent their audiences to the channel, so we got a lot of different subscribers from TikTok because of that. I mean, wow. But it's good that I got a second look at it. So now we did that show, a standalone, the April 10th show. So now we're just going to do the April 10th report and the March 10th report, which is the newest report. We're going to do them all together as one. And I, not knowing or remembering that I already did a show on the DNA analysis for April 10th, thinking that was the new report that I was looking at, I actually did a new markup on it. And I evaluated it with fresh eyes. So we're going to look at it again with fresh eyes. And then we're going to cover the March 10th, which is the newest one. And then we'll call it a day. It's going to be a great show. All right. So that being said, I need to qualify myself. You guys know that we got to let YouTube know that this is for educational purposes. We are not reviewing this DNA material because we want to entertain you and make you laugh and joke around and make fun of these tragedies. Not at all. We're doing it for educational purposes. At times, I will use humor because I have dark humor. I've been doing this for a very long time. I've been investigating sex crimes for most of my adult life. Since I was like 23, 24 years old, I've been investigating sex crimes. And I've been in the game for 18 and a half years for multiple agencies. I started my career out doing sex crimes investigations for the New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision, where I investigated inmate on inmate sex assaults and staff and inmates unauthorized sexual relationships, which is a felony in New York State. Okay, and it's against PREA, the Prison Rape Elimination Act, which is a federal document that requires that officers and parole officers and correction officers who engage in relationships with inmates and parolees are charged with rape third, okay, and whatever equivalent across the country. Everybody has to comply with this. It's a federal law, all right? So I went from there to policing, where I worked on the streets. I worked as a community officer. I worked as on a specialized unit that chases guns and violent offenders and stuff like that. And then I worked my way back into being a detective again in the sex crimes division, right? That's what I know. So I knew that's what I wanted to do. I knew, wow, you worked on the highest level of the state in the Department of Corrections, which is the biggest law enforcement agency in New York State, and you did sex crimes there. When you get into the police department, you need to do sex crimes there as well. And that's what I did. So now I'm back as a detective working sex crimes cases for my municipality as a police officer / detective, right? That's my work history. Now, my education, I have a bachelor's degree in social work and criminal justice. I have tons of training. I'm a crime scene technician. I would have collected a lot of these swabs that you see inside of these reports that we're going to review. I'm certified to do that if I was in the Department of Corrections. I don't do that now in the police department. They have their own crime scene unit. I'm the investigator of the sex crimes, but I'm certified to do it. I'm certified and trained, and I've had experience collecting some of the type of evidence that you'll see in these reports. Some of my evidence was even used in federal court. I did one of the first sex crime civil rights investigations for the New York State Department of Corrections for New York State with the Southern District of the Justice Department, which is the venerable Justice Department Southern District, where all the terrorists and all those really baddies are charged. That's where I did the first civil rights sex crimes case for New York State, and my evidence that I collected, the swabs that I collected, was used in that federal case. So my crime scene collection skills has been showcased and used in both state and federal court when I work for corrections. Now that I work for the police department, they have a dedicated crime scene unit that I'm not a part of, so that's not the case. But I do have that experience collecting evidence, and that evidence has been scrutinized in state and federal court. I tell you all of this not to boast to you guys. I tell you all of this to qualify myself for YouTube. This is not for you, it's for YouTube. To qualify myself for YouTube, to show that this show is for educational purposes and not for entertainment purposes. Lastly, I want to say this. This material, this show, this broadcast is for adults only, 18 and up, and viewer discretion is advised. We're going to definitely try and present this in the most professional and respectful way to Maddy and all others involved in this case, but it is not for children. This is for adults, 18 and up, viewer discretion is advised. That being said, thank you so much for joining me today. That was a mouthful, and some people will be mad that it took me so long to say it, but the reason why we said it is so that this show could be monetized, so that YouTube understands our position and understands what we're trying to accomplish here. And so far, it's been working, because every show that we have dropped so far in this month has been monetized, and we are so grateful for that. All right, so first, what I want to do, I'm going to set the show up real quick, and thank you everybody who's joining. We got 196 people, but only 99 likes. Yeesh, I'm sorry that I disappointed some of you guys that you're not hitting that like button, but hopefully as more people stream in, there'll be more people that like me versus people who don't, and then they'll decide to hit the like button, and we could get into a wider audience through that algorithm. All right. First, I want to start the show off by giving you guys some tidbits as to some of these terms that we're going to be using, like serology, which is basically when in crime scene they test bodily fluids, right? Blood, semen, spit, all that stuff. That's serology, right? And that's a big part of crime scenes and a big part of criminal investigations, because that's what identifies your person, or at least puts somebody in a place where a crime was committed. So I got a few videos that I was able to pick off of YouTube real quick. Very short videos, 30 seconds, a minute and a half, etc. It's going to explain some of this. This one's from the Georgia Bureau of Investigations. I'm going to play this one for you real quick. And actually, let me move myself over so I'm not in the middle of the screen. Perfect. And this one's quickly on serology and how it's used in policing. Let's do it.
Forensic DNA scientist Emily Hines performs a serological and DNA analysis on the saliva found on a piece of evidence. Forensic biologists use these types of tests to create DNA profiles that can be submitted into CODIS and linked to other profiles of known and unknown individuals. This helps law enforcement connect and solve cases that might not be solved otherwise.
All right.
Have you ever wondered what a forensic...
Thank you, Georgia Bureau of Investigations. And actually, the next up video is the video that we want, so we don't even need this one up here. We could just use this one right here. So that one basically lets you know that's something as little as smoking a cigarette, putting it on your lips, can put enough DNA for us to be able to say, oh, you know what, this person is the person that was involved in this crime. And, you know, a lot of times these persons smoke cigarettes, throw them away, kissing, sucking on somebody's body, putting your spit on somebody's body, foreplay, all that stuff leaves a DNA trace. So now I want to look up DNA profiles. Like, what does a forensic DNA profile look like? This is a really good video by a small creator, 13 subscribers, drew conclusions. I looked at their channels kind of all over the place. So if it was just science on, I think this is what this person does for a living. And if they just focus on this, so if you're watching this, Drew, focus on this, because I think you can make a big impact if you just focus on what you know, which is what you do for a living. I had to learn that lesson too. I was talking about everything and nobody cared. Nobody cared about strategic's position on politics. Nobody cared about strategic's position on race relations, all that stuff. Nobody cared, okay? The moment I started talking about my passion, which is law enforcement and sex crimes investigations, is the moment people started caring. And I'm not mad at them for that. I realized that this is my raison d'etre, and this is where God was pulling me to give a voice to the voiceless. And now my show is getting people who are interested in looking at it. And so I give that advice to you, Drew Conclusions. But please do go to his channel, guys, and show him some love. Give him a little bit something more than 13. I mean, if he never puts out more content, at least he had more than 13 subscribers. But listen to his breakdown of what DNA profile. I think it was really cute, and I think it was very informative. It's only 1 minute and 4 minutes. Let's do it.
Have you ever wondered what a forensics DNA profile actually looks like? Well, it looks something like this. These numbers and peaks are great and all, but what do they actually mean? Each number represents an allelic polymorphism, or an alternative form of the gene at that chromosomal location known as a locus. Each person gets one allele from their father and one allele from their mother. In forensics, we use non-medically relevant chromosomal locations, or loci, that can be targeted and amplified using the polymerase chain reaction, or PCR. PCR acts like a molecular copy machine that creates millions of copies of the DNA. The DNA is then separated using capillary electrophoresis, or CE, which pulls the negatively charged DNA through the capillary. Larger fragments travel slower through the capillary, while smaller fragments travel faster. This separation is the basis of a DNA profile, with smaller fragments represented on the left side of the electropherogram, or EPG, and larger fragments represented on the right. These EPGs represent a DNA profile that can be used for comparisons. But what happens if the sample DNA contains more than one person? Well, we'll discuss the world of mixture deconvolution in the next one. Thanks for watching, and tune in next time for more forensics content.
All right, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Did you know that you can now multi-stream?
Oh, that's actually something I'm interested in. Multi-streaming to TikTok, because my TikTok is growing exponentially, and I want to start getting live streaming into that TikTok. But whatever, that's just another video for another day. Anyway, somebody in the chat says, how does one determine if it could be trace evidence? That's an interesting question. I don't think that you kind of understand what trace evidence is. But trace evidence is basically very small evidence, you know, microscopic, like hairs and stuff like that, blood spatter, whatever, DNA that goes between people. So like if I touch you, and if I touch a bottle and I drink something, there's trace evidence on that bottle from my hand. There's skin cells and stuff like that. So your question's a little odd. How does one determine if it could be trace evidence? I'm not really sure how to answer that. So if you know that the person is touching these surfaces, then as a crime scene technician, you're going to swab the surfaces. I got my Invisalign in. I usually take it out for the shows, but I'm not doing a good job keeping it in my mouth, and my teeth are shifting back, and it's very painful when I do put them in. So please excuse any lisps or any misspeak that you might hear from me. It's the Invisalign. So anyway, as a crime scene technician, when you're told by the detective, when they're doing a walkthrough with you and the detective's kind of telling you, like, this is where the victim says that it happened, this is the locations we're kind of interested in. As a crime scene technician, you're now going to go and you're going to swab the areas where you believe that the perpetrator may have touched. You're going to swab items on the victim that you believe the perpetrator had access to, and that's what's going to be the trace evidence. Gathering evidence in the places and on the things that you believe that the subject had contact with, and that microscopic transfer of skin cells and saliva, serology, whatever, that's your trace evidence. So it's not about determining, or how does one determine if it could be trace evidence? I guess I understand your question now. One would determine what it's possibly trace evidence by trying to track what objects and things and even people the subject had contact with. So I hope that answered your question about trace evidence. Okay, now that we got that stuff out the way, let's jump into the first DNA report, right? So this is the one that we received from that very helpful, very nice viewer that we thought was the newest report, but it's not. It's the old one. And this is the clean version, right? And then I'm going to show you my markup. We're going to go through that real quick, and then we'll get into the March 10th one that was dropped by the Docket and Plunder, right? And they have not made those available on their Patreons yet. So unfortunately, we're going to have to do screenshots that we were able to take from his YouTube channel and kind of run through it that way. Okay, so this is the original one that happened that was generated on April 10th. This is the first one that we looked at. And if you see here, there's a list of the evidence that they were testing, etc. And really primarily want to show the clean one because I did not screenshot and mark up the first page. And this is the first page here. Okay, so now I want to go ahead and get us the markups that I did. Get in order right here. Okay, so these are the results. Item 3 is a buccal swab representing that of Stephen Stearns. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and make you guys be able to actually see this. I apologize. So I'll go back here because you guys couldn't see what I was talking about. This is the clean version. I'm sorry about that. It's a lot of screens for me to pay attention to, even though the screen I need the most is right here in front of me. All the evidence that I'm looking at is on this screen, and then your chat where you guys are telling me stuff is over here. And then I got this screen to worry about where Aki screams at me, and she does a lot of screaming at me. All right, so let's keep going. So this is the clean version once again. And up here, it's going to have the list of evidence. And this is important because they go back to the evidence so that you can figure out what's what. Like, for instance, they might test number 10, evidence number 10, item number 10, and then they're going to cross-reference number 10 with either number 3, number 4, or number 5. So that's why it's important to, this is like almost like the key right here, the evidence key, if you want to say it. Like a map has a key, this is the key. So everything is going to be coming back to these items. Everything's referenced back to these items. And in this particular DNA laboratory report, the most important items that we reference back to are our control samples. That's what they're called, control samples. So control sample is something that doesn't change, something that you match things against, something that you basically compare to. Right? And our control sample, the most important control sample that we're going to have in both this April 10th and March 10th document is going to be the buccal swabs that represent Stephen Stearns. That's going to be his profile, and the DNA card representing Madeline Soder. That's her profile. And an interesting one is the penal swab from Stephen Stearns, because there's going to be tests on that penal swab to determine if there's any DNA on that. Is there Maddy's DNA on that swab? We don't know. We'll have to figure it out as we go through these documents. Okay, so now that we have that, now let's go to the actual notes that I took. And I love Samsung, man. I know that you can get this kind of effect with Apple, but you need that really expensive Apple Pro tablet to get like the stylus. Well, Samsung, this is a way of life for Samsung. I love it, all right? Really, really, really good. All right, so for item number 3, this is a buccal swab of Stearns. Item number 5, the DNA card for Madeline Soder. Those are controls, all right? And complete DNA profiles were obtained from 3 and 5. So we know who these people are. It is not in dispute who they are, and we can now compare our samples and our results to those two profiles, to those two control samples. All right. So item number 4, the penal swab represents as being for Stephen Stearns. Stephen Stearns, item 3, is expected to be a donor of item 4. No DNA results foreign to Stephen Stearns were obtained. So what was obtained, excuse me. So what that means is he took a good shower and he washed himself very thoroughly. And taking a shower does not always remove all DNA from a surface, or from the body rather, but they found no DNA on his member associated with anybody else. That could also mean that intercourse did not occur that night. And I'm starting to believe that based off of the test results that are in this March 10th and April 10th reports. It does not appear that Stearns engaged in full-blown intercourse with Maddy. Doesn't appear that way, unless, of course, he used protection. That is also a possibility as to why we're not finding DNA inside of her. Okay, so let's keep going. So item number 6, left fingernail clippings represented as being from Maddy using a color test change. Item failed to give chemical indications for the presence of blood, so no blood. Item number 5 is expected to be a donor for item 6. No DNA results for Maddy were obtained from item number 6, and only Maddy's DNA, no Stearns. Okay, item number 7, right fingernail clippings represented as being from Maddy. Using a color change test, there's no blood. No indications of blood, ladies and gentlemen. Item number 5 is expected to be a donor to item number 7. No DNA results foreign to Madeline were obtained from item number 7. Only Maddy's blood and DNA. Only her blood and DNA. Let's keep going. Items 8.1, left neck swabs represented as being from Maddy. 8.2, right neck swabs represented as being from Maddy. So there were indications for the presence of blood. Item 5 is expected to be a donor to item number 8.1, 8.2. That's Maddy's DNA. And no DNA results foreign to Maddy were obtained from 8.1, 8.2. So she had blood on her neck, but it's only her blood. So I don't know how that blood got there, but there's no DNA from Stephen Stearns. I'm going to tell you why I think that might be the case. Because blood is very hard to get off, even when you wash it. It's very hard to get off. So you'll still get those antigens glowing when you do the test for blood. But that does not mean that there's actually viable DNA there. And what I'm starting to think when I reread this report on accident, thinking that this was the March 10th report, and I'm rereading it, and I'm going through it again, I feel like Stephen Stearns cleaned up her body. Somebody said use gloves. I don't even think so. I think Stephen Stearns cleaned up her body. Stephen Stearns had her body to himself for at least 8 hours. For at least 8 hours, from 11 to 7. For at least 8 hours. 7 is when he starts moving around, moving the body around, getting in the car, going places, throwing stuff in the garbage. He had that body in the bed for at least 8 hours. And this report is not going to tell us about any chemicals that are found on her body. Her autopsy would show if there is a presence of bleach, if they smell bleach, if they tested for bleach, if they tested for detergents and all that different stuff. That's what the autopsy would say, and we don't have the autopsy because she's a juvenile, so they're not releasing the autopsy, at least yet. I have a feeling that Stearns cleaned up her body. I have a feeling. Because it doesn't make sense that there's so little DNA of Stearns on her body, even if he did not do the worst to her that night, He still moved her around. He still touched her, moved her around, got her dressed, all that good stuff. You would expect to find more DNA on her unless he cleaned up her body. And by the time he cleaned her up, got her dressed, the places where there would be a lot of DNA is places they're not testing because it's not probative. It's not probative to test her forearms and her legs. So what if you find DNA there? They live together. You can explain that. The DNA that you want to find that's going to be probative is on the neck, where we know that she was asphyxiated. She was strangled. On her boobies, on her privates. That's where you would look to find DNA. We're not finding that. Why? He cleaned her up. He cleaned her up. Big shout out to Jamie MP with a $5 super chat. Says that explains the picking up and setting down noises, like something being placed on a table, like the roommate said. It's possible. It's definitely possible. I think he cleaned her up. And I think the evidence of that, or the absence of evidence of that, is going to be inside of that autopsy report. Anyway, let's keep going. Item 9, right hand swabs represented as being from Maddy using a color change test. Chemical indicates the presence of blood. So this is a bloody scene here. And I said this before. Said this a long time ago, that this was very bloody, that he cleaned up blood. Now, there could be a number of reasons where that blood. If you're choking somebody, sometimes people bite their tongues. Blood sometimes comes out of people's nose, sometimes out of people's eyes because the capillaries pop and all that stuff. Like, we don't have photos of this. This may not be a situation where you would see pretty photos of this youngster. The autopsy photos of this youngster might be gruesome because when you take that breath away from a person in a manner by which he did, it doesn't always end up like the way the movies look, like it's peaceful. It's not. It's not. And so there could have been blood coming out of the orifices as a result of his assault. And so that could be it. I have not read or heard anything about any types of, knives or anything like that being used on the youngster, on Maddy, but there are a number of ways and reasons why she could be protruding blood as he's doing what he's doing to unalive her. Tests, like the test that they're running in this in this report, could show indications of blood even if he cleaned her up. But the same process that's cleaning up the blood that would still show the indications of blood may not be able to get a lot of DNA evidence. Let's keep going. Remember, we could see signs of blood even when people use bleach and clean up those crime scenes with household cleaners. We could still see indications of blood, but that doesn't mean that we'll be able to get viable DNA that we can actually test and get a profile from. Let's keep going. So item 5 is expected to be a donor to item number 9. DNA results foreign to Maddy were obtained from item number 9, so that's a right-hand swab. Due to the limited nature of these results, the data is not interpretable. What does that mean? This falls in line with my theory that he cleaned up the scene. Tell you exactly what it means. They were able to get some DNA material and identify it as DNA and probably get partial DNA signatures from it. But it's not enough for them to get a profile because it's most likely degraded, and that's why it's not interpretable. And what not interpretable means is that they can't form a profile. They don't have enough of that DNA material to actually get a profile. If Stearns is doing all the stuff that we know he's doing, that this report is telling us he's doing, why can't we get enough DNA for an interpretable profile? Why? Because he's cleaning up the scene, ladies and gentlemen. He's cleaning it up. Let's keep going. Left-hand swab represented as from Maddy indicates the presence of blood. There's blood everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. All over her body, there's blood. They're finding blood everywhere, but they can't get a profile. Why? Why? Because he cleaned her up. DNA results obtained from item attempt demonstrates the presence of a mixture. Mixture means more than one DNA. Means Maddy DNA is found and an additional DNA is found. Sometimes it could be 2 and 3 DNA is found in that mixture. Item 5 is expected to be a donor, so of course they're going to be able to get enough material from Maddy because it's her body that they're swabbing. But will they get enough of the other person? Let's see. Observers in a mixture, DNA results foreign to Maddy were obtained from item 10 due to the limited nature of these results. This data is not interpretable. Same deal. They can find evidence of DNA, foreign DNA, but they can't test it because it's not enough. All right, let's go to the last page, and then we'll make our way to the March 10th DNA report. Rectal swabs represented from being from Maddy. Indications of blood, that doesn't surprise me. You do find blood in a person's stool from time to time. That's not necessarily a slam dunk that something foul was happening. But let's read on. Possible hairs were observed on item 11, but not removed or examined. That could be a sign of some foul stuff because we do have hair, microscopic hairs on our members, and throughout the course of intercourse, those hairs can be deposited inside of the rectal, inside of the vajayjay. I'm saying it crazy like that because I'm trying to adhere to YouTube's terms of service. Why I have a question, why not test the hairs? The reason why I have that, I want to answer that question for you guys. It is extremely difficult to get DNA profiles from hair without a root. And the only way you get a root is when you pluck the hair out. When the hair naturally sheds, it doesn't shed with the root. And the reason why is roots will have intact, healthy, alive cells that have nuclei, and that's where we get DNA from the nuclei of the cell. Hair cells are dead cells. They're dead cells, and so they don't have intact nuclei. And not only that, but you subject hair cells to chemicals. And especially when it's coming from the head, that will degrade those hair cells even more, making it extremely difficult to get DNA from those cells. So I believe the reason why they're not tested is they usually will save that type of evidence until science catches up. And believe me, every 6 months, there's a new scientific breakthrough when it comes to DNA. What determines whether you know about it is if the news thinks that it's something that will get them views, clicks and views. But when you're in the actual world of testing DNA, you'll hear about it. And so they'll save that until they get better DNA testing methods that can go ahead and allow them to get profiles from stuff that they couldn't get from before. And sometimes it just takes as little as 6 months to a year before those breakthroughs come through. And sometimes they're very expensive, but if they feel like it's necessary, they'll say, okay, well, we'll send it out to that lab who does that new technique, and we'll pay the $20,000 and we'll get it. So they're not going to try and test it if they're not sure that they can get that evidence from it, because in many instances, there's only one piece of evidence and it'll destroy it and then it's gone. So they're going to save that for a later date, basically. Item 5 expected to be a donor for item 11. No DNA results foreign to Maddy were obtained in item 11. So there's no actual DNA that they found in her besides these foreign hairs that they're going to save to test at a later date. We got the vaginal swabs represented as being from Maddy. There is an indication for the presence of blood that makes sense. You do get tears inside the vajayjay when intercourse happens, but there's no indication of foreign DNA from Stearns. Now, could it be that he used protection? It's possible. It's definitely possible they used protection, and therefore there would be no DNA inside of her if he used protection. But it would also be consistent with the fact that she has the presence of blood inside of her vajayjay. Now, the thing is, we would now have to see the autopsy report to see if there's tearing in her vaginal walls. If there's tearing in the walls, in the cervix area, and then they also have the presence of blood, then it's possible that he used protection when he did it. Big shout out to Kaylin K with a 1999 super chat. She says, you are amazing. Thank you so much. Appreciate you for the super sticker. Thank you so much. I know I'm not paying as much to the chat as I usually do, but I'm trying to get through this with you guys. And it's very technical stuff, so I want to make sure I give you guys the best information possible. So please do spare with me. And we do have our moderators in the room. If they want to highlight a comment, it'll be easier for me to address it. So please do. But super chats, I'll always get to. I'll always get to the super chats, always get to the super stickers. So thank you so much for being generous with the show. Let's keep going. And then we get to item number 12. Hair collected from the vaginal swabs. The possible hair observed on item 12 was examined using whatever. You guys know what I'm saying. Just can't pronounce it. Microscopy, I think is how you say it. However, the hair was not suitable for STR DNA analysis and was returned to the original package. And what STR is, guys, is basically the process of replicating DNA. So when you have a small bit of DNA that you need to test, you have to replicate it. And STR is a technique of replicating that DNA so that they can now create these large swaths of DNA that they can make DNA profiles for. And what they're saying is that right now, based off of the size of this evidence, which is a piece of hair, they're unable to replicate the DNA in the hair right now to actually make a DNA profile. So they're just going to save that. You can save that for a later date for the reasons that I gave you earlier. So now we get to the breast swabs. So item 13 is the breast swabs represented as being from Maddy. And then they check for blood, and there was no blood on the breast swabs. They're really looking for that serology, looking for blood, but also looking for saliva and other things like that, and even semen. So the DNA results obtained from item 13 demonstrates the presence of a mixture. So showing that there's a mixture. Item 5 is expected to be a donor, so that's Maddy's DNA is definitely going to be on there. And item 13, it is observed in the mixture. DNA results foreign to Maddy were obtained from 13. Due to the limited nature of these results, this data is not interpretable, so they can't get a profile. So they do have a mixture of DNA, but based off the testing that they did here, they cannot get a profile. This is interesting because we saw something different in March 10th, excuse me. We'll get to that. So item 14, oral swabs represented as being from Maddy. So of course they're going to swab inside the mouth to see if any oral sex was done. Let's see what you got. Is expected to be a donor to 14. So Maddy, no DNA results for anybody else was found. So based off of this evidence, no oral. And so that's the end of that. The rest is the remarks, etc. And they use STR testing, which is basically to determine the Y chromosome and to see if it's a male that's involved. All right, so now I want to get on over here. I'm going to switch my screen up, and we're going to get to that March 10th report. All right. I'm going to do a quick adjustment real quick. All right, so we're going to be using, we haven't used this in a little while, but we're using my tablet. So that we can get interactive with this, and I'll be able to actually write on the screen as we go through this. So you won't be seeing me. I know you guys are going to miss me because you guys love how I look. I'm such a handsome guy. Yeah, right. But we're going to get through this. Once again, we're using screenshots that we took from the dockets webcast that he did. That's a webcast. What am I, like 80 years old? YouTube video that he did. If you want to see his commentary, please go over to his channel. Aki has graciously just posted the link to his channel. Go on over there, listen to his commentary as he breaks down his interpretation of this DNA evidence. But for our purposes, we're just using the actual documents. It's going to look a little weird because we screenshotted it, but we did our best, okay? Once again, we were prepared as though we believed we had the newest DNA report, but we were wrong. All right, we had the April 10th report on accident, and so we had to scramble and do our best to get the March 10th document. And because of that, the best we could do is screenshots, guys. So once again, hit that like button, guys. Please hit the like button, support the channel. We do need that support. We want to get to a wider audience as we break down this DNA report, okay? And big shout out to Scrappy, $5 super chat. Scrappy been with the channel for a very long time. We do appreciate him. And he said, did they profile Jen's DNA, to eliminate her involvement? I don't know if they took swabs of Jen, but if Jen was involved, then you would have multiple mixtures and there would be a Jane Doe, and they'd be able to tell from the YSTR the difference between a male donor and two separate female donors. And they're not finding that. All they're finding is either Maddy's DNA or mixture DNA. And the mixture DNA is from the YSTR, meaning it's male DNA, but they either have enough of that male DNA to actually create a profile or they don't. So at this point, they don't need DNA from Jen Soto. They don't need a control from her to eliminate her because they're not finding any additional DNA. They're either finding Maddy's DNA so far or a male donor. And sometimes they can get a profile from that male donor. Sometimes they can't. So I think it's not necessary, but that's a really good question, Scrappy. But let's get into March 10th and let's see if there are multiple donors. Let's see, because I kind of perused through it, but as you can see, it's not marked up, so I didn't have the time to actually dissect it. So we're going to dissect it together. All right. Okay. So this is our first one, and this is the first page. I tried my best to not make sure that they're not out of order. So this is the newest report that was given. And so March 10th, laboratory report, attention Mark Morris, that's going to be the assigned detective. We all know that. And once again, we are tasked with basically making sense of these documents, right? So as an experienced detective, you know how to read these documents. So even though a scientist is the one that puts the document together, detectives are trained and experienced and authorized to actually dissect these documents and make sense of them. So Mark Morris would not have the scientist on the phone making sense of this document for him. He's expected to understand and interpret this document for himself based off of his training, even though he's not a scientist. So when I review this document with you as a active duty and experienced detective, I have all of the necessary training to break down and interpret this document. I don't have to be a DNA analyst or scientist to break this down. It is well within my job description to understand this document and break it down for you guys. So let's keep going. Next page. So this is a death investigation, Osceola County, February 25th, 2024. We know that the results of this came in on March 10th. Reference. This report references evidence submitted to Florida Department of Law Enforcement on June 5th, 2024 by Rita Tavares. This report contains conclusions, opinions, and or interpretations made by the author. The evidence, this is the list of the evidence, and they submitted YSTR analysis. Okay. Item number 3 is a buccal swab represented as being from Stephen Stern. So that's our control. Once again, that's our control. A complete YSTR DNA profile was obtained from item number 3. So they know that he's a male. They use YSTR because he's a male. They know it's a male donor, and they now created a DNA control profile of Stephen Stearns, and he is representative of item number 3, and they're going to be looking back at item number 3 to compare it to the evidence that they find. Okay. Item number 6 is fingernail clippings represented as being from Madeline Soto. So we're going to go ahead and just mark this up real quick. I like marking it up. So this is Maddy. Okay. Remember, I'm writing with a stylus. You know, I could do better than that. That looks ugly. We could do much better than that. In fact, let me move this keyboard, do a little rearranging so I can do a better job for you folks. Give me a second. Rearrange this a little bit. All right, so I can make it look good, nice and professional. Okay, so this is Maddy, and this is Stearns. You guys get to see my handwriting. You've seen my handwriting many times before. I write like crap. All right, so now we got Maddy and Stearns. All right, so no YSTR results were attained from item number 6. So we have no DNA from Stearns. So that one puts that one to bed. All right, let's go to the next one. Okay. And this one, let's go ahead and highlight this one so we can do our thing on this one as well. Okay. So item 10, left hand swab represented as being from Maddy. So you guys know what we're talking about. Due to the limited nature of the YSTR DNA results obtained from item number 10, this data is not interpretable. So what that means is not enough DNA material. So they don't have enough DNA material. They do have DNA. They can say that it's a male, but they don't have enough to actually determine a profile to say, well, this is Stephen Stern's DNA. They could just say this is a man's DNA. All right, so item 13, breast swaths represented as being from Maddy. Once again, we're here with Maddy. They redacted it, but we're not going to redact it because we know who it is. A complete YSTR DNA profile was obtained from item 13. Now, this is huge. This is huge right here. I want to go ahead and circle this bad boy. I'm over here being fancy, guys. This is huge. This is our conviction DNA. This is going to be DNA that's going to help convict this guy. Now, we all know, a lot of guys don't seem to understand what we do in law enforcement. We know for a fact that we have the 1,700 images of Stearns, his body parts, violating Maddy. His face, Maddy's face in there, his body parts with distinctive freckles and moles and stuff like that that are uniquely identifiable to him. We know we have that, but you have to understand we don't stop at that in law enforcement. We don't say, oh, we got him dead to rights, that's it, we're good. No more. We keep searching for as much evidence as we can find until we go to trial and we cannot bring more evidence, and we're shooting for our conviction. So every piece of evidence counts. It doesn't matter how dead to rights you have a subject. So this right here is going to be evidence that's going to show that he abused Maddy on that night. This shows he abused Maddy on that night. This is irrefutable. If this was if Maddy and Jen Soto switched places, he could make the argument, I didn't do it. We were in a relationship. We had a little foreplay. I put my mouth in certain places, and then I didn't see her. I left and went to work, and when I came back, she was gone. I'm giving you an imaginary situation. Under no circumstances is any explanation going to be viable as to why his DNA is found in that intimate place of Madeline Soto. There's no explanation that he could give that's going to explain why his DNA was found on that part of her body. Aki just highlighted a comment for me. It says, Healed Soul says, I think they said they found S toys on room 4. So the reason why they found blood inside MS and they didn't find Stern's DNA is because he used those toys. That's possible. I haven't heard that yet. There's a lot. All of us can't know everything about the case. So there's a lot we don't know. I'll look into that. Please do, if somebody has that information, send it to me via email. There's a lot to sift through. If you already know where to find it, what document, send me proof. Do not send me your opinion or what you think. I appreciate it, but send me proof on matters like this. If people, I appreciate that comment, but if somebody sends me an email, we're talking about the email specifically. If you send me an email like, yeah, strategic, they did find those toys in X, Y, and Z. No, send me the proof. That's what I need, okay? So that's a really good comment, and that would explain a lot, absolutely. And it also goes with the mentality of these type of guys. The PDFs, as people are starting to say around the internet, which is a better way of saying this, the PDF files, I like that. PDF files, I think Law and Crime starting to say, I think other YouTubers are starting to say the PDF files, I like that. So the PDF files, part of their MO, it's not just about them specifically putting themselves into the victim. It's also about putting objects into the victim. So a lot of PDF files will use objects to abuse. That's why it's not enough to take away their ability physically. You know, like a lot of times they'll use castration and stuff like that. Some states use that. Some countries use that. Even if you castrate a PDF file, they will still abuse victims with objects because it's about control and it's also about the violation of the V. And they can achieve that violation not just with their bodies, but with other objects. So that makes a lot of sense as to why there's no DNA found inside of Maddy, but yet the indications are that there was penetration. Really good comment. Thank you so much. If only we could just have evidence of that actual toys and stuff like that. I would love to get that evidence, so please send it to me. Rosie Rose 80 with a 499 super chat said, would like to say, love your sense of humor. You make me crack up. I love your expertise. Keep it coming. Thank you so much, Rosie. We really appreciate you. So let's get back to this. Powerful stuff so far, man. Very probative so far what we're finding out in this new DNA report. We already got one slam dunk piece of evidence that's going to make sure that Stearns spends a significant amount of time, if not his life, in prison. So now we get to the YSTR DNA profile from Stephen Stearns. Item number 3 matches the YSTR DNA profile obtained from item 13. Once again, slam dunk. We're dealing with a slam dunk here. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that. And I'm going to make this available. What we put together here will be available on the Patreon for anybody who wants to come back to it and see my markups and see my notes, basically. So this right here, oh my gosh, we can't do that. I thought I chose the highlighter. Is this a highlighter? Could have sworn it was a highlighter. Maybe this is it right here. You're just a little too strong on that. Perfect. So this is going to be very probative. This is going to be a piece of evidence that they're going to harp on inside of the case. They're going to really harp on that in the court. So according to YHRD, accessed on 8/19/2024, this YSTR DNA profile is found in one of 29,207 total Y filers. So basically, this is basically going to say, like, you know, the majority of population will not have this DNA. This is definitely Stephen Stearns. That's basically what the rest of this page is going to say. So now let's go to the next page. Remarks, PCR-based YSTR DNA analysis will perform on samples from 3, 6, 10, and 13 utilizing the Y-filer plus PCR amplification system. Remember, when they say amplification, they're taking a little bit of DNA and they're replicating it until they have enough that they can actually test and get good profiles from, right? The values were calculated following the suggestion of the scientific working group. And basically, once again, this is basically saying this is Stephen Stearns' DNA. So this is what they're explaining in this document here. All right, let's keep going. It says DNA extracts are being returned. It is recommended all DNA extracts be stored according to the labeling. This is a short one. All right. I think we're almost done with that. So item 10, left-hand swaps represented as being from Maddy due to limited age of YT. I think we saw this one already. It's not interpretable. And then we have the one from her chest again. And yeah, so we already covered that one. That's a repeat. And I think that is it. So this one's basically detailing where they took the swabs from. This is a laboratory submissions. On Wednesday, March 13, 2024, laboratory submission form was completed and submitted to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement for further analysis of the following items. Interesting. So DNA card for Madeline Soto. There's a lot of biology stuff that they submitted. There was some fingerprint cards they submitted for fingerprint analysis so they can go ahead and see if the fingerprints match up. They did oral swabs, chest swabs. Of course, that's not what it says, but you guys know what I'm talking about here. Let's go ahead here, give it a little highlighting. So we got the oral swabs, chest swabs, vag swabs, rectal swabs. It's quite possible that the reason why we don't have any DNA on these is because maybe no oral was done and maybe a toy was used. Or I don't like that word toy. It almost like diminishes the gravity, but I'll say an object. I'll say an object. So an object was used. And if an object was used, then we would not have the DNA, okay? Especially if the object was sanitized. You know, once again, I doubt that once again, I do not believe that Stearns knew he was going to unalive her when he walked into that room. So if he sanitized the object, and I'm only getting down to the nitty gritty because guess what? We're talking science right now. So we have to be accurate. I do believe that most people would sanitize those type of objects before they use them. And if the object was sanitized before he used it, there would be very minimal to no DNA from him on it, at least on the object that's actually going inside of the person. And so there's going to be very minimal DNA, but you will see what we do see, which is blood. We saw blood inside both the anal cavity and inside the vagina. You got it in both of those. Now the autopsy, that's what's going to show us if there's tears. Tears is what we're looking for. Tears. They're like, what is that, strategic? Is that supposed to be tears? Like, what are you writing, dude? Let's try and write better. Tears. This is what we're looking for, because the tears will be consistent of some type of penetration. And it's going to tell the story as to whether the theory that was said in the chat is correct, that objects were used. That's what's going to tell the full story of this autopsy, or rather this lab report. Remember, this is very incomplete, ladies and gentlemen. This is a lab report. This is a lab report. This is not an autopsy. This is not telling the story. This is telling what was left behind. The autopsy in conjunction with the lab report and the toxicology, all those things, that trifecta, that's what I call it, the trifecta. The autopsy, the lab report, the toxicology. Each one of them tell a different part of the story. When you put them together and you have the detective walking you through what these things are saying, through interviews, through observations, through investigative techniques, that's when you get the full story. That's when you get the full story. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Let's look at some of the other things that's connected. Evidence collected. Evidence processing conducted by the Orange County Sheriff's Office on Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. Shay Janak of the Orange County Sheriff's Office Forensic Unit processed the following items under their case number: potential genetic material. I retrieved and submitted the swabs collected to Kissimmee Police Department Evidence Unit. There's too many hands that was in this mix, by the way, guys, because they kind of switched off agency and stuff like that. You got two different forensic units, two different submissions. It's a lot going on here that was not good synergy and not good use of police resources. In all actuality, this is weird that Kissimmee has their own forensic unit. Really, it's a waste of money. Typically, when you don't have major cities, how it works is the sheriff's department is supposed to do the forensics. Like where I'm at, I'm in a town. I'm in a small town. Our police department doesn't have a forensic unit. We use the sheriff's department or the state police. You know, my local police department, their job is to protect property. We're in the suburbs. You know, the property is worth, quite a bit. It's safe up here. You don't have to lock your doors if you don't want to, even though you should, but you don't have to. Sometimes people forget. It is what it is, you know. Everybody has guns up here, even though it's New York. It's a different animal. It's not New York City. And so what we expect from our police department is order maintenance. You know, we expect you to patrol and make sure that nobody's coming up from the city to try and burglarize our houses. Because all the burglaries that we have in our area, in these regions, these suburban regions that are an hour away from the city, you know, away from that lifestyle, is basically people from New York City like, oh, let's go up there and go rob those folks, you know? So that's what we expect. So if there's a robbery, if there's a burglary or something, there's no robberies, but if there's a burglary or property theft or something like that, the state police or the sheriff's department is the one's going to handle it. This is a poor town for the most part. And yet they have their own forensic unit. That's a waste of resources. Really, they should delegate that to the sheriff's department, which has more funding, and focus on the investigative aspect and order maintenance. That's what I'm thinking, but who am I? I'm not the police chief. I'm not the mayor. I'm a nobody, right? So let's go back to this. So these are some of the things that they collected. 2 swabs of the straps of the backpack collected by Janik. 2 swabs of the wear of DNA from insole of the white croc. 2 swabs of zipper tags, a backpack collected by Janie. These are good swabs that they're taking, by the way. 2 swabs of the handle of the backpack. Day 3, Orange County District 9 Medical Examiner's Office. Let's see if we have anything here that we need to talk about. On Tuesday, all right, let's think about it. That's about it. That's it. We're done with that. All right, so that's a short report and very probative. Very, very, very probative. Let's bring it back to me, guys. Very, 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 very probative. All right. Wow. I do believe, based off of the fact of what we know happened to Maddie, the fact that we only have one place on her body that had interpretable DNA to get a profile, do a YSTR test on that and get an actual profile and say, okay, this is Stephen Stearns and that's going to be on the chest area. I definitely believe that he cleaned up the body. We know that he washed clothes. We know that. We know that Stephen Stearns used the washing machine and washed her clothing. We know that. We know that. He washed his own clothes and he washed her clothing as well. That is a fact. That is irrefutable, ladies and gentlemen. I guarantee you he used chemicals to clean up her body. Mary Mushroom says, $5 super chat says, I remember the roommate saying she heard vibrating coming from the room. My thinking since day one is he drugged her and things went too far. It's possible. It's possible. It's definitely possible. But in order for him to complete that action, Mary, there had to be anger. It's very rare to accidentally asphyxiate somebody with your hands. It's very rare. I think there was anger. I just don't think that we're talking about rough play here. Drugs and rough play. I think we're talking about anger. I think there was the pregnancy might be an issue, the possible pregnancy. I should say possible because it's not proven yet. And I also think the jealousy, the fact that she no longer wanted to allow this man to do this to her. I don't believe she wanted to. I think that she started looking at boys her age. She's getting older. She's growing out of this abuse. She had space away from him. Remember, space and time gives you wisdom. She was away from him. You guys got my water bottles on here. Let me bring this down. She was away from him. He was staying more in Northport. She had time to think about what has been happening to her for a very long time. And I think that maybe that night she said no more. She said no more. And I might have sent him over the top, and he did what he did. But he definitely cleaned up the scene. He definitely cleaned up her body. Let's take some calls, and then let's get out of here. Let me go ahead and definitely get the app up and hear from you fine people. I want to hear what you guys think. Really appreciate you. And do me a favor, guys. I do love the theories, and this is a big part of our show that we have theories. But I think it's important that we at least try and base our theories in fact. It does Maddy no justice, and it takes away from the seriousness of this case if we just say theories that have no basis in fact. Base your theories on fact. I want to hear from you. I want to hear your theories, but make sure you base your theories on fact, okay? We do appreciate that. So the app is open, and we'd love to hear from you guys. And I'm going to go ahead and copy that. Put that in here. Perfect. 518-639-6283. 518-639-6283. We want to hear from you. We have 650 people watching us right now. It's a lot of people who are giving us their time and hearing our perspective on this case, but we only have 466 likes. We just ask for those people who are watching and have not hit that like button yet to please support the channel. We're not asking for our ego. We're asking so we can get into that algorithm, that YouTube recommendation page. All right, let's take the first caller. What's going on, caller? Welcome to True Crime and Strategic. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi there, Strategic. This is Kathy in Portland, Oregon.
What's going on, Kathy? What you got for me?
Appreciate your show. It's awesome.
Thank you.
I've got a question on DNA. Can you tell me if touch DNA is like less reliable than other, and if so, why?
I wouldn't say it's less reliable. It's harder to get a profile out of touch DNA because there's such small amounts of DNA that's transferred between the two objects. But it's definitely not less reliable. If you have enough to get a profile, if you're able to do PCR processes and double that DNA and be able to get a viable profile, then it's just as good as any other DNA. But
okay. So it's not different. It's just less of it.
Exactly. It's basically
in one spot.
Right.
Now here's maybe a crazy question. Does it like fly around?
Say again. I couldn't understand you. Say that one more time.
Oh, does it like fly around where it could like be across the room from somebody and my DNA like land over there?
Oh, you mean like, is it airborne? No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I mean, touch DNA, is basically touching. It's basically transference.
Okay. It has to literally
it's you touching stuff.
To literally touch the thing.
Yeah, you touching stuff, or you could maybe spit. That's possible. Spitting while you're talking. Okay. That's possible, but it's less likely. Okay. It's usually touching stuff. The toys that was allegedly used, or the object. You could get touch DNA from that. Touching a person's arm or body. Okay.
Right. That makes total sense. Awesome. Well, thank you.
All right, you got it. You're breaking up, so I'm going to take the next call, okay? Thank you so much for calling.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, what's going on, caller? Welcome to True Crime with Strategic. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Alexis. I'm calling from Arizona.
All right, welcome. What you got for me?
Thanks. I have a theory about sorry, I'm going to try to use YouTube-approved language, too.
Appreciate it.
About Maddy being used to create materials.
Okay.
And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, especially because we discussed, I think yesterday, that Jen called the choir teacher first. And to me, that's really interesting. Yeah. Right.
Well, we know that she was used for that. There's proof of that. Now, the question is, was it distributed? And I don't know. Right. I don't know if it was distributed, because if it was distributed, then that would result in another agency getting involved, primarily Homeland Security or most likely the FBI. So it's possible that they could be doing an investigation and they haven't spoke about it. But usually when it's these type of cases, if it's like a cartel, the FBI will be quiet about it. But when it's a case like this, the FBI usually makes an announcement and say, hey, we're a part of this too, because there's no hiding. Like, he's in jail. Whatever's done was already done. So they're not tipping him off. There's nothing he could do to destroy that evidence. He's in jail, right? So we have not heard about the FBI being involved with this. Now, if there's a larger ring that he was a part of, the FBI may be less inclined to say that they're investigating it, because there are still people who are outstanding that they don't want to tip off. So these things are possible, but we just don't have no evidence of it. And as far as with the teacher, I do believe that if he had and possessed that type of material that had Maddy in it, I think that they would have made mention of that when they charged him. He's already been charged, but he was only charged for those youngsters, those 2 male youngsters that he was manipulating into creating that material across state lines. He has not been charged with anything related to Maddy. So when I made that comment about the first person she reached out to was that teacher, it was not necessarily to say that she was in cahoots with him. It was just kind of like esoteric. Like, why is it that due to the infinite possibilities in this universe, all of these people are involved in malfeasance, and they're all in communication with each other. So I was kind of asking like that universal question, like, why Jen Soto? Because to me, it's like everything revolves around Jen Soto, and Jen Soto is the only one who's not facing any consequences, but yet she just seems to be the center of all of this madness. And that's really why I was making a statement, not so much of, oh, this guy must be involved with Stephen Stearns or whatever, because I don't think that he is, because I think we would have found out by now.
Yeah. Okay, I appreciate that. Do you have time for one more question?
Sure, go for it.
Do you think that Stephen had enough income from other people to afford all his little stupid gadgets and toys and vapes and whatever? Do you think it's possible he was getting income elsewhere?
Well,
that may be related to the material?
I can tell you this. It is exceedingly easy to make income trading this stuff on Telegram. The infrastructure is there, right? But once again, I don't know if that's what he was doing. What I do know is that he did he did have employment from time to time, and he also did odd jobs that revolved around the things that he liked. And when I say odd jobs, maybe they're not jobs, maybe they're like small businesses, maybe we could say. We know that he decorated. I don't think
he knows what a job is.
Right, probably not. But he knew how to hustle. It does look like he knew how to hustle. So he was really good at painting Warhammer figurines. I like Warhammer. I don't play the game, but I like the lore of it. And when I looked at those photos of the figurines that he painted, a lot of people are like, screw him. I hate him. They look ugly. In all actuality, they weren't. They were really intricately painted. And there's a lot of people who would pay a lot of money in the Warhammer community for his work. So that's a way that he could have generated income where off of a set of figurines, he could have got hundreds and even sometimes close to thousands, $1,800, $1,900, $2,000 for his work painting those figurines. So that's a possible avenue of him making money. Now, to purchase the figurines without being painted, it's just a couple dollars to maybe a few $100s. But him painting it and selling it could have brought him in some money. Also, I made fun of him because I think that men should not engage in these things, but I'm toxic. I'm a toxically masculine guy. But those Tamagotchis, it is what it is. I embrace it. Those Tamagotchis, a lot of them were rare. And there is a market for collecting them. So he could sell those Tamagotchis.
I thought he was a collector.
That's true, but collectors do also sell.
Too?
Most collectors do sell. That's part of being a collector. You might collect more than one of a specific piece, and then you might sell so that you could afford to get a different piece, but you still have a few representations of that. You have 5 of them. You only need 1. Maybe you sell 3 and you keep 2 for yourself. So he was a collector and a seller because I saw Reddit posts where he was actually selling them. So when you dig deep into him, he was selling a lot of this stuff. And that's a way of him getting income. So I don't know. It could be an amalgamation of him selling that illicit material on Telegram, which we have no evidence of so far. But we do have evidence, tons of evidence of it, especially in Reddit, of him reaching out in these communities and selling these gadgets, these figurines, these childish things that he was making money off of. Appreciate you calling, caller.
Thank you, Strategic. I appreciate everything you do. Have a good day.
You too. Bye. And then we also got to remember, guys, that when you're not paying rent and you're not paying a car note and you're not taking care of children, all you're doing is taking care of yourself. You're not giving any money to support Maddy. You know, you're not giving any money to support Jen. You know, it doesn't really take that much to survive off of. It doesn't. It really doesn't, especially when you're not paying taxes and, you know, you're just making your money off the black market. So keep that in mind, guys. Any other callers? I'd love to hear from some more callers, unless we'll call it a day. It's a short show, so we do have time to get more callers. So once again, the phone number is going to be 518-639-6283. We'd like to hear from you. If you guys don't call in, I'm just going to go eat some curry goat that I got from a Jamaican spot. small town not too far from us is really good, man. They got authentic Jamaican, man. They don't have that bland seasoning that anybody can eat it. Like, they got Jamaican food. It's either you with it or you not. So I'm looking for some more callers, or I'm going to jump on some Jamaican food. So show some love, call into the show. I'd love to hear from you, hear some theories from you, see what you guys got to say about that. All right. Okay. Let's go to some comment section, give a shout out to some of these folks who supporting the channel, and then we might make a move. Mary Mushroom says, already read that one. Alexander G with 1 gift membership. Whoever luckily received that gift membership, please do show some love and thank Alexander G. That's very kind of you. We had quite a few supporters today, and we do appreciate that. Lisa and Mary Herrera are now new recruits for the channel. We appreciate you. Jamie Witherspoon is a recruit. Thank you so much for showing that love. Mallory Beavers is a member for 8 months on the patrol level. She says, good morning. Thank you for always showing up for Maddie. Thank you so much for showing up for me and showing that love. You are appreciated. What else we got? What's going on, caller? Welcome to True Crime Strategic. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Penny Richardson, Cleveland, Ohio.
Hey, what's going on, Kenny? Talk to me. What you got for me?
I just want to let you know, I don't think Jen is associated in Maddie's passing or anything. I just think she's a dumb woman, and I just wish people would quit picking on her because she's just, like I said, not so there. So I just feel bad for Maddie, and I hate that this happened to her, and just wanted to give my opinion about Jen.
Okay, we appreciate that. And we obviously have a difference in opinion because we do not believe, I say we like I'm talking for the chat. When I say we, I talk about me and my show, me and Aki and the people in my show. But I don't believe that Jen is a unsmart woman, and I say that because of the YouTube. You're fine, though, but you know, YouTube is just so terrible with me. I don't think she's an unsmart woman. I think that my heart wants me to be empathetic towards her like you are, and I commend you for being an empathetic person. We need more of that in this world. But when I evaluate this case and I look at the things that Jen has said, at the very least, she's a negligent parent. Now, I don't know if she took part in the unaliving of Maddie, and I agree with you with that. And I'm a law and order guy, and I'm not going to be led by my emotions. I would never want Jen Soto to be charged with a crime that there's no evidence of, period.
Right.
That would be a travesty. It'd be un-American, and I would rather 1,000 Jen Sotos go free who may have had a hand in the unaliving of Maddie if we're convicting people without evidence. You have to have evidence. But I think that there's tons of evidence of her being a negligent mother. And I think there's tons of evidence of her leading the lamb, as I say, to the lion's den. And for that, it's unforgivable. Because if she protected Maddie, and I always said this in defense of Jen Soto. I'll say this. I've always said this in defense of Jen Soto. I don't believe that there's anything Jen Soto could have done to stop her daughter from being victimized by Stephen Stearns. But there's 1,000 things she could have did to make sure that it didn't last as long as it did, and to have helped her daughter get justice while her daughter was still alive. And the fact that did not happen is due to the negligence that she showed as a parent. Go ahead. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. I agree with you. Definitely.
All right. So because of that, I find her actions unforgivable, and that's why I'm hard on her, because I feel like she was negligent. But I do agree with you. I think we can agree with something that right now there's not enough evidence to say that she had anything to do with the unaliving from an evidence part, and even from the abuse part, because there's just no evidence of it. But I'm gonna take this next call, and I really appreciate your call. All right. Thank you so much for calling in.
I just want to say I'm definitely negligent against her too. You know, I don't approve of anything that she's done, but like you said, she's just not an intelligent woman, but that's no excuse for her either.
Right. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
All right. Cool. You know, I love callers like that. Like we don't always have to agree with things. We can agree to disagree, but it's all about how do we do it? Do we do it respectfully or not? And that's a big issue that I see on YouTube, is that people don't know how to respectfully disagree. It's like they have to knock you down in order to build themselves up. And I love a caller like this one who disagrees with me, but is still respectful. So thank you so much for calling. What's going on, caller? Welcome to True Crime and Strategic. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, Strategic. It is Terry calling from Texas.
What's going on, Terry?
Thank you for taking my call today.
Absolutely.
Thank you for taking my call.
So what you got for me?
I just wanted to kind of, I want to kind of add something. I have some serious problems with the way that Jen handled this. When you look back, I've been watching some of the redacted stuff, some of the unredacted stuff, and just kind of bringing up, just noticing other things that she did. At such a crucial time, your child is missing. The police are questioning you about these things, and you are lying to them. Just like she said, well, Stephen went back in December or at the end of December because his dad had a job. No, remember specifically, his dad said, I'm not paying his rent anymore.
Right.
He needs to come back here. Another thing she lied about is Stephen Stern. In her immunity interview, she said that Stephen had dropped that baby off to school several times.
Right.
That was a lie. She admitted that was the only time he ever took her to school.
Right.
So that means when she was lying about her not wanting to be in that car, that was a bold-faced lie. What mother whose child is missing does that?
Right. Throwing Destination New York said throw in the Woody Allen comment too. You know, wouldn't a comment like that wouldn't that Woody Allen comment be kind of like, you know, you had an indication that something was going on? Listen, man, big shout out to Jay, who sent me a $20 cash. I appreciate you for supporting the channel. We really do appreciate it. Listen, man, what you said is the reasons why I respectfully disagree with that caller. A nice lady who called before you. We do appreciate her, and we love the fact that she was respectful in her commentary. But this is the reason why I can't let Jen have a pass for all the things you listed out and all the things you didn't list out. And we can't even blame you or me because there's so much things it's hard to keep track of with all the lies and deception that Jen Soto has told law enforcement and us by extension. So many lies and deception that before her derivative use immunity deal started, when she sat down with the venerable Jay Williams, what did he have to say? What was the magic phrase that he said to Jen Soto? Do you remember?
Dirt under the bridge.
That's right. It's dirt under the bridge. All those lies you told us before that we could charge you for, it's dirt under the bridge. He would never have to say that if Jen Soto was cooperative, truthful, and forthcoming with law enforcement throughout the course of this investigation. The truth of the matter is she was everything but those things. And that's why she needed derivative use immunity, and that's why it was dirt under the bridge. You got anything for me else before I let you go?
And one more thing, and I think he said dirt under the bridge because he knew she was a dirty thief.
Appreciate you censoring yourself. I agree with you, but maybe I shouldn't have said that. I got to be neutral. I hear you.
Yes.
I hear you, and I feel you.
You keep us going. You keep us informed. Thank you, Strategic.
Thank you so much. You have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. I think we'll leave it on that one, man. It was a good call. We're not going to run it forever because I'm hungry. Once I said the Jamaican food out of my mouth, it's been sticking with me. I can literally taste the curry, man. I can taste the curry. It's in the fridge. It's ready for me to do my thing. I didn't eat breakfast. All I had was this energy drink. And so now I'm wired up on an empty stomach, right? And it's around lunchtime, right? I skipped lunch. I skipped breakfast, rather, because I'm trying to drop a few extra pounds. So I skipped the meal. That's not always a good strategy for people, but it works for me. So I'm going to have a nice lunch, and I'm going to get ready to go to work. So, guys, we had a really good show. I really appreciate everybody who called in, everybody who dropped super chats, who helped the channel out. We do appreciate you. It's definitely appreciated. Let's pray and hope that this show is monetized, because we did say a lot of words of people's private areas and stuff like that. They may not take kindly to that. But once again, this show was for educational purposes only, and it's for 18 and up. Viewer discretion is advised. This show is for adults. Lastly, we do have a membership. We've been dropping a lot of content on the memberships. We drop a lot of content on the Patreon. We have quite a few people who want to be a part of the Patreon. We appreciate that. Quite a few people want to be a part of the membership. Join the family. Get the the true experience of being a part of the Strategic Eyes family by being a part of that membership. We have an affordable option, one of the lowest memberships on YouTube. Lowest memberships on YouTube. We start at 99 cents. And after YouTube takes their cut and taxes, we only bring home 40 cents. So we're basically giving you a membership for 40 cents, okay? 99 cents is what YouTube charges you. 40 cents is what we take home, okay? We do that because not everybody has the finances to be a part of these memberships, and we want to give an opportunity to everybody to become a YouTube member. So the lowest tier starts at 99 cents. There are higher tiers, and of course, you get more the higher your tier is, but it starts at 99 cents. Okay, we love you, we appreciate you, and that's why we're trying our best to allow you to be a part of the family with such a low entry level membership. So consider being a part of the membership, okay? All right, 99 cents is where we're starting at. If you could do more, you get more, but we're starting at 99 cents. We also have our Patreon, one of the lowest Patreons out there at $5. Exclusive material for $5. So consider being a part of the family, guys. It is what it is, all right? So we love you guys immensely. I love those those DNA emojis. I love them. Wow, who did that? Did Aki do that? Did somebody else do that, man? Sarah Maddy, I see you throwing up those DNA. That's hot. Let's keep that there, though, because we always talk about DNA on the show. Let's keep using those emojis. I love the gavel emoji. I love it. And I love those DNA emojis. Those are really cool. So anyway, guys, I'll see you guys on the next one. Let me cue up that outro. I'm always the worst with it. I always say, see you later, and I don't even have the outro queued up. I'll see you guys on the next one. Strategic is out of here. Peace. All right, so Aki just said that she didn't do those DNA emojis. So we know that the gavel was gifted to us by A Obsidian. We appreciate you. We love that. We use that often. Whoever did the DNA emoji, I love it. So congratulations for doing that. That's really awesome. And I hope we can use that on this show more often. And lastly, to the members who are watching, you will be getting a decompression show of the DNA evidence. We're going to decompress from that. We're also going to decompress. So it's 2 shows I owe you guys for the members. Decompression from the Stephen Stearns interview and a decompression for the DNA. So I'll see you guys in the members area in the next few days and hours. We'll be dropping that video. See you on the next one. Strategic is out of here. Peace.